So the Samsung Galaxy S21 Fan Edition costs about the same as the original S21 flagship blower, so it certainly ain't cheap, but it does actually try to upgrade a couple of key areas of the original S21, including boosting the battery life and actually adding an optical zoom to that telephoto lens. So maybe it's not so much the Fan Edition as it is the Fixed Edition. But has it actually sorted the issues with the S21? Well, I've been rocking the Galaxy S21 FE in my pants for the last week, using it as my full-time smartphone, and spoiler alert, it's pretty good, but definitely not the perfect reboot I was hoping for. So here's my full final Galaxy S21 FE review, and for more on the latest and greatest tech, please do poke subscribe and ding that notifications bell. Cheers! Now, I'm still not entirely sold on Samsung's choice of colours for this Fan Edition model, especially compared with the gorgeous bold offerings of the older S20 FE. I mean, white and black are just a bit basic and frankly boring, and the olive green and this here lavender model are really rather niche. I'm still getting some serious Nan vibes from this thing, to the point where I could basically taste the fisherman's friends. In fact, this model is almost a match colour-wise for the Beats Fit Pro, which I only just reviewed, so maybe it's just me being fucking weird and those pensioner vibes are really hot right now. As far as the size goes, well, thank the baby Jesus that Samsung's usual one-handed mode is built in here, because the Galaxy S21 FE has bulked up a little from the original. Although at 6.4 inches, it is still actually one of the most compact phones you can buy in 2022. And at least it's pretty comfortable to clutch even for long periods as well, thanks to the rounded corners and edges. Now, like the S21 before it, the Fan Edition has a Gorilla Glass Victus display with no screen protector to speak of, so I was expecting it to be coated in nicks and scuffs by now. Thankfully, it's not too bad at all, although there are a couple of light scratches on there after just a week, so I would highly recommend installing your own screen protector before you actually use this thing. And that plastic arse end is as rugged as you would like. It's still pristine, even though I've not exactly been gentle with this thing all week long. And you got full IP68 water and dust resistance as well, so basically once you slap that screen protector on, the S21 FE should be nice and hardy. Now so far, Android 12 and the OneUI 4 launcher have been behaving themselves. And it is quite the potent combination here on the S21 FE. Most of the great Android features from those Pixel 6 smartphones have made it across onto this Sammy blower, with the exception of a couple of Pixel exclusives like the call screening feature. So you got the same great privacy setup, as well as Samsung's excellent security measures. The in-display fingerprint sensor works perfectly, even when your hands are a bit moist. Definitely one of the best out there that I've tested. And as usual, you've got face recognition as a backup. And you can make that facial recognition as secure as you like, so you can have the S21 FE really take its time to identify you to make sure fraudsters are less likely to trick it. Otherwise, you can have it speeded right up if you prefer. But even if you do opt for the time-saving option, the Fan Edition still won't recognize you if you're wearing even quite a skimpy face mask. The Galaxy S21 FE also allows you to customize almost every bit of it, from the always-on display to the side key, which can summon up Samsung Pay or our great mate Bixby, or even the camera if you prefer. And speaking of Bixby and Samsung Pay, those are just two of many Samsung apps slapped onto the S21 FE that basically do the same exact job as many of Google's own efforts. And you've also got Smart Things, which is basically just another Google Home, plus a health tracker, a web browser, all that bollocks. And personally, yes, I do still find it quite annoying that you've got two web browsers, two photo galleries, two of absolutely everything. It's like Noah's sodden ark up in here. But of course, if you do happen to prefer Samsung services to Google services because you've used lots of Galaxy smartphones in the past and that's what you've stuck with, then great, you'll be a happy camper. But thankfully you can uninstall most of Sammy's apps if you like, which is just as well, because when I first got the S21 FE, around 30 gigs of the 128 gigs of internal storage space was used up with system apps and files and all that kind of shenanigans, and there's no micro SD support to expand that storage. But anyway, if you want to know more about the launcher, I've done a full-on video on the biggest features and improvements of OneUI 4.0, so check that out. Onwards we stroll through this lovely little review, and oh look, it's the same dynamic AMOLED display as the original Galaxy S21, only a mite bigger this time. This 6.4 inch beauty pumps out bright, crisp, bold visuals at Full HD Plus resolution, with only a tiny wee chunk missing courtesy of that selfie pinhole jobby up at the top end there. I kept the display settings on the default vivid mode because I really like the punchy, poppy output. And also, I rarely had to manually fiddle about with the screen brightness as well. On that auto mode, it keeps things comfortably soft at night times when you're tucked up with Teddy twatting about on Twitter. And if you stroll outside and it's super sunny, well, that screen brightness will be boosted up to the maximum so you can clearly see everything you're up to. And yeah, those stereo speakers may not have quite the same kick as the original S21's built-in blasters despite the size growth of this phone, but they are better quality, offering a greater depth of sound. And no complaints when it comes to the Bluetooth smarts here either. Absolutely no issues at all with the connectivity or the range over the entire week of testing. And there was lots of testing of the Bluetooth connection because there's bugger all headphone jack action here. Now running the show is Samsung's own Exynos 2100, at least here on my UK review sample. And despite a decidedly juddery first few hours, the Samsung S21 FE soon sorted itself out, kind of. Almost everything from that point onwards has been quite responsive, although the S21 FE can be surprisingly a little bit juddery at times. So for instance, the camera app is particularly unresponsive, especially when you're skipping between different modes. It's probably not helped by the fact that my review model sports just 6 gigs of RAM. It certainly seems to be one of the main reasons why the Fan Edition struggles to maintain a smooth frame rate with Genshin Impact when it's boosted to higher detail settings, even with the priority mode and other gaming mode bits active. Eventually I just dropped it down to the medium settings, which worked a charm. While less demanding titles like Call of Duty Mobile play absolutely perfectly, even when you do boost those graphics all the way up to proper lush levels. And one of the advantages of having the Exynos model of the Samsung Galaxy S21 FE is the fact that it stays reassuringly cool even if you're gaming for a good hour or two. Like even with plenty of Genshin Impact action, I'd rarely say it rose above the level of tepid. Although while you're gaming, that battery life drops pretty ruddy rapidly, so I certainly wouldn't stray too far from the nearest available plug socket. Ah yes, battery life, the Achilles heel / dung heap of the original S21 handset. I do like Samsung's original S21 flagship phone, but it really struggles to last a full day, usually falling on its arse sometime around the early evening. So I've got to say I was somewhat relieved when I heard that Samsung had boosted the battery size for the Fan Edition from 4000 mAh to 4500. But unfortunately, as far as solutions go, this has turned out to be about as effective as fixing a leaky tap by screaming obscenities at it. If what you want to do is just message mates and thoroughly depress yourself by glancing at social media occasionally, then yes, the S21 Fan Edition will last you the full day. But if you want to push it just that little bit further by, for instance, using the camera a fair bit, Skyping your family for an hour or so in a day, doing a bit of gaming, streaming a fair bit of Netflix, well, good luck getting this thing to last until you are all tucked up with Teddy. Most of the days I've been testing it out, it has needed a bit of an extra charge before I finally stumbled into bed. And even on the days where I did survive, I still ended up with around 5 to 10% battery life maximum. As for the charging, well, you've still got support for 15 watt wireless charging or 25 watt wired charging, not exactly super nippy. And of course you will have to provide your own plug because Samsung does not bung an adapter in the box. And last up, the optics, which have been partly spruced up for this Fan Edition, although once again you've got a 12 megapixel primary sensor. This low megapixel count versus many rivals means there's no pixel binning, but I still got good returns in most conditions when snapping on full auto. Colour accuracy and skin tones aren't quite as authentic as those captured by the Pixel 6, but if you're not too bothered about realism, then chances are you will enjoy the rich tones of the more vivid subjects pumped out here. Kids and pets occasionally come out as a blurry cluster in more ambient light, a situation definitely not helped by the occasionally lethargic focus, while Samsung's usual night mode is on hand to brighten up low light photos of static subjects, providing you've got a steady hand. As well as that primary shooter, the Galaxy S21 FE also packs in a 12 megapixel ultra wide angle lens. And this again struggles to capture accurate colours, but it is immensely helpful when you want to shoot something absolutely frickin' massive, like a cathedral for instance. However, the big change for the Fan Edition is the 8 megapixel telephoto shooter, which packs a proper 3x optical zoom. You can actually pinch in all the way up to 30x zoom, but I wouldn't recommend boosting it past the 10x level, as your photo will start to look proper grainy. It is definitely good enough for getting a close-up without intruding on a scene though. I've got to say though, I haven't noticed a huge improvement in the quality of my zoomed in pics here on the Fan Edition compared with the S21. The S21 didn't have an optical zoom, but it did have a much higher megapixel count, so basically just cropped into an image instead. It's just a very different way of doing things, and I didn't really notice that one way was particularly much better than the other. But as usual, the Samsung Galaxy S21 Fan Edition does serve up an absolute bugger load of bonus camera features, some of which are proper good, including good old single take, of course. This is a good one if you've got kids or pets, because you can basically capture up to 20 seconds of footage of them, and then it will not only save a video, but also do lots of little stylish photos and stuff as well. So lots of different ways of preserving the moment. And speaking of video, while you no longer have the option to shoot 8K footage here on the Fan Edition, frankly it's no big loss. The Galaxy S21 FE does a sterling job with 4K action. Every frame is packed with detail unless the lighting conditions are particularly ropey, and even if you're moving and shooting, Samsung's image stabilization keeps the results pleasantly smooth. Sound is picked up cleanly from all directions with only a little bit of interference from the wind when you're shooting outdoors. And if you like to share photos of your facial region on the internet, well, a good way of taking said photos is with the Galaxy S21 FE's 32 megapixel selfie camera. This can switch to a pulled out view if you want to fit in a couple of heads or some background action, and even in low light it ain't too bad. So that right then in a nutshell is Samsung's Galaxy S21 FE 5G, if you want to add the little 5G bit at the end, which frankly is just superfluous these days, so why bother? And I gotta say, I quite enjoyed using it as my full-time smartphone, but at this sort of price point, I'd say go for the Pixel 6 instead, because the battery life is the main issue with this thing once again. Unfortunately, you get to the early evening, you'd be constantly glancing at that battery percentage, wondering if you're going to make it through the full day, especially not good if you happen to be heading out in the evening or anything. The camera is solid, but not quite as good for stills as the Pixel 6, though admittedly, I think the video capture chops and certainly the selfie camera are better here on the Galaxy S21 FE. And the Android 12 OneUI 4 experience is very good indeed as well. But if you find a good deal on the Fan Edition, I'd say, yeah, maybe go for it. Otherwise, especially if you're a power user, you're really demanding, you want to be doing gaming, lots of camera play, all of that stuff, then I'd say probably look elsewhere. But anyway, I'm just waffling on now. What do you guys reckon of the Galaxy S21 FE? Definitely be great if you down below, especially if you've actually been using it as your full-time phone as well. And for more on the latest and greatest tech, please do subscribe, ding that notifications bell, and have yourselves a bloody wonderful rest of the week. Cheers everyone, love you.